Trick or treat time. Trick or treat time. Trick or treat time. Get treats, it's time for Halloween.
I'm so startled. Hello everyone and welcome to Terrorthon Day 16. Today we're going to be talking about another subgenre of horror known as found footage. You may not be familiar with the term, but you have definitely heard of some of these movies. Found footage essentially means that the whole movie is shot via the point of view of a camera that's being held by one of the characters. In my opinion, it helps to create the illusion that it's real life, and I personally adore found footage. It's not for everyone, and you can certainly get motion sickness watching them, but I am a huge champion of them. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of found footage, starting with Cannibal Holocaust, which was released in 1980. This movie was so convincing that the director of the movie ended up in court to prove that he hadn't actually murdered his actors. But one thing that is real in this movie is that real animals are killed, so be aware of that if you watch it. It's very upsetting for that reason. Next in the history of found footage we have The Last Broadcast, which a lot of people believe preceded Blair Witch Project, but actually Blair Witch was conceived much sooner than The Last Broadcast. But it holds the distinction for being the first film to ever be made entirely digitally, with no film involved whatsoever. And then we come on to The Blair Witch Project, probably the most famous example and one of my all-time favourite movies. This movie cost $60,000 to make, but it made $248 million in revenue, which was previously a world record that the movie held. Next up we have the first famous foreign movie called Wreck. It was Spanish and it was almost entirely improvised, like most found footage movies, and its influence is felt far and wide, especially considering it inspired Outlast single-handedly. Now we come to another very famous example known as Paranormal Activity. This movie was entirely improvised and took only 10 days to film in Oren Peli's home. Much like the Blair Witch Project, this movie made an absolutely astonishing amount of profits. It was filmed for $15,000 and made over $193 million in revenue, making it among the most profitable movies ever made. Found footage movies continue to be made, such as Host, which came out just this year on Shudder, a horror movie set over a Zoom call during the pandemic of the coronavirus. If you haven't seen any of these movies, I personally would highly recommend them. See you tomorrow.